I'm finding it. Hello, babies, and welcome back to D-Talk, your safe space to explore your creativity, expand your critical thinking skills, embrace your cringe, and prime yourself for connection. Welcome to episode 11 of season 2, and today we are going to be talking about content creation. Let's get into it. Thanks for joining me today, babies. Now, we are going to get into this idea of content creation. Now, content creation is a very big and broad category of a behavior, of an endeavor, and there's so many different things that go into being a content creator. And hi, you're on the scene of my talk show. I'm a content creator, so I'm here to talk through the experiences that I've had in my content creation journey and also how to become a content creator, but also kind of the mental energy that you need in order to be a content creator. So there's lots of different things that we're going to get into today, but we're going to start from the top. We're going to start with an article that I found on medium.com about how to be a content creator and some of the skills that you need to seek out and some of the attitudes and ideals that you need to internalize in order to be a content creator. Now, I have to say, in my content creation journey, I've really come to the realization that everybody is a content creator. Everybody is. And it's probably because I run in very creative and queer circles. So a lot of the people that I know are already content creators, but they might not call themselves content creators. So I think it's a very broad definition that you can put on yourself if you are a creative person. But once you really start looking and once you start really broadening your idea of what content creation is, it's really easy to see as everybody is a content creator, especially teachers, because that's the lens that I view a lot of this kind of stuff through. Teachers are content creators. You're creating lessons and unit plans and assessment pieces, and so much of our life comes down to creating something, because really that's our only job here on this earth other than to participate in capitalism, unfortunately, because we do live where we live and capitalism is fully rampant. So there is the idea that you need to do other things that might not be this creative content creation that you are looking to achieve. But I'm here to share with you some tips and tricks and some of the opportunities that I've uncovered, both in my research for this podcast and in my experience in the last year, that I have been fully embracing my content creation journey. So before we get into this article, maybe I'll just tell you a little bit about my journey. You know, this isn't an MLM. I'm not sharing my story in order to manipulate you. I just want you to understand where I'm coming from before we start this conversation, because you need to be critical about all the information that you find online. And hi, I'm sharing information with you online. So all of this advice, it's not necessarily going to be completely valid for you, but like a tarot card reading on TikTok, you need to take what resonates and leave the rest, because this isn't all going to be necessarily valuable for you. But I do have a lot of things that I can share with you that I know will be valuable if you are somebody who's kind of you're peripherally skirting this idea of creating content, but you're not sure where to start. You don't have the confidence to do it. And all of those things are completely normal. So hi, hello, my name's David. And if we roll back the calendar, let's go back one calendar year. And I lived in Lethbridge, Alberta. It's a small town. They got the big bridge, You've heard it, you've seen it, you might have seen it. It's striking how many people in Calgary haven't been to Lethbridge. And other than the big bridge, I don't know why you would go there. It's usually because you have some older family members, which is why you might go to Lethbridge. And then if we roll back a little bit even farther, I graduated high school in Lethbridge, and then I immediately went into the U of L, my post-secondary education, and I did a drama degree and I did an education degree, and I did those together at the same time. So at the end of 2019, right before the panini started, I had 2 degrees and I was ready to start my life as a teacher, as an educator. It had been a dream of mine for a really long time to be an educator, and I was fully ready to embrace that life and that lifestyle, and I did. I did all the things. After the panini ended, I bought a house, I got a permanent teaching job, I was teaching grade 4, and I had the white picket fence, and I was ready to just saddle up in front of the fireplace with a cup of hot tea and just ride off into the sunset of the idea of success that a lot of people, especially in the communities that I was in, were looking for. Because on paper, I had all the things. I had the house, I had the job, I had friends. It was kind of done. And we've talked about in other episodes of we have goals and we're working on goals, and sometimes we're really hard on ourselves for not reaching any goal that we have in our mind, but ultimately the entire point of life is this journey of achieving goals that you're looking to achieve. And sometimes we're like, oh, I wish I just had this thing. But ultimately, if you woke up tomorrow morning and had this thing, achieved this goal, what would you do? right? A lot of our days are filled with this pursuit of any given goal. And unfortunately, like I said before, capitalism exists. So sometimes we have to participate in income generating activities like working at a job that you don't like in order to pursue the artistic content creation kind of endeavor that does fill your soul on the side. I've heard this idea too that your job and your passion shouldn't be the same thing. I don't really agree with that, but I do understand where that perspective is coming from, because if you are monetizing what you really enjoy, you do run the risk of not enjoying it anymore, and then your passion is now your job, and then you're kind of stuck, and then you're stuck monetizing the things that you used to enjoy. And then sometimes your content creation and or your artistic endeavors start to be seen through this lens of how can I modify it in order to make the most money, in order to get the most views, which isn't necessarily a good thing, because you don't want to change what you're doing in order just to meet the standards of the masses. Because you listening to this right now, you are not an average representation of the rest of the world. You fall somewhere outside of those lines, because nobody is the average. The average is no one. And that's good, but sometimes we look at the average as every person, and that's not really what it is. And that's not good, because sometimes we view us as an average person, and that's not really what average means. It's the conglomeration of everybody around you kind of cut into the most average person, and nobody is average. And thank God for that, because average is boring. Normal is boring. Normal people scare me. Exactly. So on paper, I had all of these things. I had reached success. I was a university educated teacher. I had my permanent teaching certificate in the province of Alberta. And it was like, okay, I'm going to wipe my hands of this goal. But now what? Where do I go from here? What do I do? Because I started to feel myself getting, I don't know if complacency is the word. There wasn't really an active pursuit of goals, because I didn't really picture my life beyond the attainment of the things that I had attained. So things became boring and things became monotonous, and that wasn't good for me. I started having some experiences in my professional life that weren't very positive, and it was almost, it's like the broken window theory, right? You can have a building that is abandoned, and it's perfectly in its state of when it's abandoned. Everything is still together in one piece, and it all still looks exactly as the way that it was abandoned in. But the moment that one of those windows gets shattered by a bunch of teens who are throwing rocks, then all of a sudden everybody comes in, and now there's graffiti and garbage and people are partying there, and then all the windows are broken, and then people are messing with the foundation, and then it all crumbles, right? And it's almost this idea too of like peering behind the curtain, and you can't unsee things. So I had a few experiences in my professional career that led me down the road of looking at things through a new lens. And I started to look at the impacts that I was having on the communities that I was serving. And while they were good and positive and I was happy with them, I really started to think, wow, this isn't enough for me. And I think a lot of people have similar experiences, not only in education, but across all the sectors. And it's very uncomfortable. And it's easy to kind of take a step back and resign yourself to the idea that this is good enough for me. And that usually comes from a place of anxiety of the unknowing, right? You have to be able to accept the unrest in trying new things, because you should always be trying new things. And as we continue our conversation on this idea of content creation, two really important subjects that I think you need to familiarize yourself further than you already are the growth mindset and critical thinking. And if you're interested in those, my previous two episodes of DTalk were respectively critical thinking and growth mindset. So those episodes might be something useful for you to reference on this journey as well. So I was in this spot of capitalistic perfection. I'm building my pension. I have the retirement fund. I'm slowly getting raises every year, and like everything was just good. But it wasn't good enough. It wasn't enough for me. And I became uncomfortable with this idea that I had achieved everything that I wanted to at age 25. And now we just ride into the sunset, because this is how life is. And I really started to compare myself to the generations that came before me. And I had achieved all of these things that a lot of these people had to work harder for and longer for in order to achieve. So there was this egoic part of me that felt bad, because why would I want more? Why am I so self-centered and potentially bordering on narcissistic that I want more? But I want to be here and say this to you and look into the camera and say with my whole chest, Mary, is that if you want more, go and get more. It's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be simple or easy, but it is doable. And the skills that you gain in that attainment of more, whatever that looks like for you, can really change your life. It can change your brain. It can change everything. And for me, that's been very gratifying and amazing. And I'm here to share those experiences with you. But if you're listening to this and you're like, actually, no, I'm happy where I am. Everything's good. It's Gucci. I don't want more. I have what I want. And that's great. Good for you. I love that. However, a lot of people have this idea of they want more, but then they get bogged down in the fear of attainment of those goals that are outside what they already have. And then they kind of shy away and back out. And then you have regrets. And that's sad. That's not good. And there are so many different factors here that influence somebody's ability to be able to go out and attain what they want. And some of them aren't within your control. So socioeconomic status is a really big piece of that. I come from an incredible place of privilege in a lot of different ways. There are ways in my life that I don't come from privilege, and that's okay. But privilege is a really interesting thing because it can be portrayed as something that is demonized and is not good. But I think we need to separate this idea of using your privilege and leveraging your privilege in order to get what you want, as long as you are doing it in an ethical way. So I am loud and vocal about the privileges that I have had that have led me to this position, because I don't think it's ethical for me to sit here and be like, yeah, do all of these things that I had the privilege in order to do, and you might not necessarily have that same amount of privilege. And a lot of that is financial, because we live in a capitalistic hellscape. So I've been very lucky in order to have a lot of financial support from people in my life in order to pursue these goals. So it is something that can hold you back, but don't let that block you from building the mindset, because if you get your mind together, if you get that mindset together before you have those other resources, if you are able to build them, maybe you're not able to build those financial resources, and that's okay too, because content creation doesn't exactly have to mean that you are involving the rest of the world, because maybe you want to create things and you don't want to share them, and that's okay. But don't think that you can't be a content creator, you can't be an artist because any of those limiting factors exist. It will be harder for you to achieve a lot of those goals if you don't have a lot of those resources, and that is absolutely valid, and that is a thing, and that we need to keep in mind as we're having this conversation. So that's my caveat there. There is a lot of limiting factors when it comes to creating content and being an artist and going out there and sharing the art with the world, but ultimately the world needs your art. The world needs your art as much as you want to and are willing to share it with anybody else. It might just be for your friends and your family or your partner or your cats, and that's fine. That's great. Okay, back to my story. I'm getting really off track, but that's the point here. You came to my podcast. You know kind of how yappy I get, but what is a podcast if not a yap fest, right? So let's continue here with my story. So at this point of me losing the elusive nature of being a teacher in a small town in Alberta for the rest of my life, I can't believe that ever had a lure for me, but I was really happy with where I was for a long time. Simultaneously, I was really developing my interest in the world of drag, and I had a lot of the pieces. As I said, I have a drama degree. I'm really interested in comedy. I love dancing. I was a good singer. I've had a lot of experience singing and with vocals. I liked acting. I had all of these things. I love fashion. It's fashion. So there were so many pieces of a drag performer that I was already developing, but I didn't have the drag outfits. I didn't have the wigs or the makeup. So I started playing around and practicing that. And then I thought, okay, if I really want to change my life here, I need to go out and actually try this thing that is performing in drag to see if I'm actually interested in it, because it is possible that what you think your content creation journey is going to be, this final end goal that you're picturing in your mind, might actually not be what you want. So the whole part here is that you need to go out and just try the thing, just do the thing. And so much of it comes down to anxiety, whether you are willing to engage in that behavior based off of the way that other people will see you. So your inner saboteur is definitely a big part of this conversation. So I went out, I got a drag gig in Calgary at Cowboys. I performed in drag, and a switch definitely flipped there for me. And I thought, wow, not only do I really enjoy this, but I can see the potential in myself to actually realize a full drag character, get myself off of the ground with it, develop my dancing skills, my hairstyling skills, my makeup skills. It really changed my world. So I was so happy that I was able to do that and kind of realize what I wanted out of my life. And that was being a performer, being an artist, a content creator, somebody who is meant to be seen. I just feel that so deep down in my soul. And if you feel that too, I'm so glad that you're here, because we want to see you, babes. We want to. It doesn't matter. Don't judge yourself for the things that you don't feel are up to par, because it doesn't matter. You can be a content creator, an artist, a drag performer, a singer, a dancer, any of those things. You can do it. And you have to start to separate your conception of your role in any of those different things from the outside world, because you need to have that mindset together before you can bring anybody else in if you want to do it in a sustainable way. So once I figured out that being a content creator was something that I was definitely interested in, and this idea of content creation in my context, how I'm having this conversation here, isn't something that is only limited to creating content that I put online for people to consume, but also coming up with different drag numbers and singing and dancing and all of those things, because that is content. It doesn't matter where people are consuming it, right? It doesn't matter if it's in a theater, if it's in a movie theater, if it's in the grandstands, like if it's online, all of these different pieces are content and you are creating these things. So it doesn't need to be limited to Instagram or TikTok, although those are really big parts of this conversation that we'll get to in a little bit. So I started to conceptualize what my life would look like. I started to look at all of the numbers and the facts and what I could do and what I had the ability to do and what would be feasible and or sustainable. And I did quickly realize that I needed to move and I needed to leave my job as a teacher, and I wanted to come to Calgary to do all of these things. So I did that piece by piece. I started to sell a lot of things in my home. I started to tell my friends that I was interested in moving. I slowly started to move through all of the steps that would get me closer to my goal, which at that point was just moving to Calgary. I wasn't 100% sure what it would look like when I got here, but I knew that it would be better and more entertaining and fun, and it would be a better life for me personally if I moved out of that space, because ultimately I felt like my growth was stagnated there. I wasn't learning, I wasn't being challenged in the same ways that I was in university, which is really fair. I was a student and I was bringing in all of these things and learning all the new things, and then it was just like the pressure was relieved and I thought, oh, well, what now? So I did it. I sold my house. I did all the things. I moved to Calgary. I got the apartment. I moved in. I set up my things. I got some tech that would support me in my content creation journey. I started making drag numbers, going out, doing that. My idea of creating this podcast called D-Talk that you're listening to right now. So glad that you're here. Thank you, bestie. That was actually something that I had in my mind for a long time, because I am, as somebody with an education degree and a drama degree, a professional yapper. And I just love talking. I love sharing ideas. And I love building the skill of communication, which is essentially what this is right now. I could have the best, brightest, most important ideas in the world, but if I'm not skilled enough to able to share them with somebody else, then there's a big disconnect there. And that can lead to a lot of anxiety and unhappiness, because it's frustrating when you can't communicate effectively to other folks around you. So I wanted to build those skills for me. I wanted to build a podcast, and I did it. But how did I do it, right? And now I'm doing all of this other stuff. I'm performing pretty regularly, usually at least about once a week. I'm going out, I'm doing these things. I have a series called Does Size Matter, where I stand in front of some of the world's largest things and tell very bad jokes, and not tell very bad jokes, yell very bad jokes every single time I sit down to edit one of those videos. I'm like, David, stop screaming. But yeah, I have all of these different pieces of my content, and it is quite diversified, right? I have a podcast where I'm talking about these things, all of my drag content, and it's just, all of it is so like interconnected as well, because I sit down and I create a drag mix, and then I get the outfit together and the wig and the makeup, and I go and perform the number, but then somebody filmed it for me. And now how am I going to edit the filming, and where am I going to put that content for people to consume outside of the theater or club that I was performing in? So there's so many different ways that you can go down this route. Do you want to be an online creator where you film things in your home and put them online? But then you can think about, how am I going to promote it if I want to bring other people into my content creation journey? Am I going to put my podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcast? And then there's the RSS feed, which I still don't really understand what that means or how it works. So it's such a big, daunting, overwhelming task for you to be able to figure out all of those things. So that's why you're here, because you're listening to my experience and the things that I've learned throughout my journey here, developing my content and bringing it to the world. So yeah, to close out this section, I moved to Calgary. It's been almost a year, pretty much a year. I have now but I have now been out of the classroom for one entire school year. And yeah, I couldn't be happier with my decision. Not to say that I wasn't completely happy and confident with my decision throughout the year, because there have been a lot of moments where I was fearful and full of anxiety of like, did I make the right decision? Oh my God, I left the white picket fence to come and put on a wig and dance in front of people in Calgary. Like, what am I doing with my life? This is all so bad and terrible, and I'm terrified and terrible, and I'm so scared, and are people gonna like me, and all of these different things. And that's completely a normal part of this experience. So don't let fear hold you back if it's something that your anxiety is perpetuating, because sometimes there are moments where fear from an evolutionary perspective does keep us safe. So it is important. You need to be cognizant of fear and anxiety that is residing in your body, but you need to have the discernment skills in order to realize whether that is serving you or whether it is affecting you in a negative way. Again, Critical Thinking Podcast, go and listen to that if you're interested. I think it might help you if you're struggling with that idea. So yeah, I have all of these things, and not necessarily that I'm on like the other side of it, because I still have goals and things that I'm working towards. I do still go through these stressful moments and things where I don't fully believe in myself, and that's okay, because I don't really think that ever goes away. But I am on the other side of not feeling a lot of that fear and like potential judgment that I could receive from other folks for fearlessly going after my content dreams and embracing my content creation journey. Because if you follow me or are paying attention to anything about my online presence, I'm everywhere, girl. Spotify podcasts, it's on YouTube. I have Dismantling Hate, a new series that I came up with. I have the Does Size Matter videos. I'm doing makeup content and makeup tutorials. I did Dragmas, the 12 days of Dragmas on YouTube. Oh, I learned so much from that. There's so many different moving pieces to my online presence, and I'm so happy that I've been able to diversify all of my content to a point where it all feels like it's funneled under the vision of me as a creator, as an individual, but it is different enough that it doesn't all feel exactly the same, which comes down to branding. Okay, I'm stepping on myself and what we're going to talk about here a little bit further. So we're going to take a little bit of a break. And when we come back, we're going to start to read through the steps and talk about some of the skills that I uncovered in my research. So I'm going to go sit on the air conditioner and I will be right back. Okay, babies, we are back. Thank you so much for joining me today on D-Talk, episode 11 of season 2. We are continuing our conversation about how to be a content creator. Now, we're going to look at this article that I found on medium.com about content creation, and we're going to talk about what it says. So, it starts with, being a content creator can be an incredibly rewarding endeavor. It can be easy, however, to fall into a trap of self-doubt and negativity. Creating content and putting it out for the world to see can be daunting, and it's not uncommon to experience many moments of self-doubt. That's why it's important to focus on building your confidence as a content creator. We will explore 10 practical ways to boost your confidence and overcome self-doubt as a content creator. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting, these ways will help you stay motivated and confident in your work. Let's dive on in. So this is like what I was talking about before. So much of it is your mental state, your mindset in order to go after your goals and be a content creator, because you are a content creator in your brain, in your meninges, before you're a content creator to the rest of the world. And I think before we even get into this, I'm going to say this right now. And I remember hearing this and being kind of sad, but we're going to turn it into something that feels a little bit freeing. People really don't care about you. They don't know about you, and they don't know what you're about. And that's it's really hard to hear. And if you're starting a content creation journey, you're sharing it with the world, you want to bring other people into what you have to offer, you have to be prepared for no one to give a flying fuck about what you're doing and what you're talking about. Just going to let you sit with that. That's painful. It can be painful to hear, because you might have this expectation that you're going to create content, you're going to put it out in the world, and just all of these accolades are going to come flying in at you. Everybody's going to be in love with you, and just everything you do is a miracle. And it's not the reality. I hate the idea of an overnight success. That's not a thing. You might have heard the phrase, an overnight success takes 10 years. You have to put in all of this work, both physical work on your content and your mental work on your mindset, way before you're most likely going to achieve any sort of success, if your vision of success is attention from other people. Because you might have this idea of creating fame, and that's something that's important to me. But you have to look back and unpack why you want the fame. Is it the money? Is it the attention? Why do you want it? What are you going to do with these resources once you achieve it? Because for me personally, I am really frustrated with the way that the world works when it comes to discrimination, and more specifically homophobia. I can't stand that. It bothers me. I hate income inequality. I hate and am really bothered by discrimination in all forms. I want to be a voice and a part of tearing down those misconceptions, misinformation, logical fallacies, all of those things. And I'm not at a point yet where I can start monetarily giving back to some of those communities, but that is something that is definitely very high on my goals list and my priority list. I want to start the foundations. I want to start the charities. I want to be making a difference in the world in the most big ways. And that's a huge part of my motivator as creating content right now. That's something that you need to start nailing down for yourself, at least in the beginning stages. You don't need to have a final conception of what it's going to look like, but really answer the question, why? What do you want out of this? What is the point for you? Because if you don't have your why, again, it's MLM speak, but I'm not sorry, because some of the things that MLMs preach are okay, but in the context of the multi-level marketing company, it is unethical and gross, but that's not what we're here to talk about. You need to nail down your why, because it is hard. It is hard. It's a lot of work, and it's hard to continue that hard work when you're not receiving that outside attention. And if fame is something that is your goal, fame is not this like big elusive thing. Fame is just having the resource of attention. So if you are looking to have this resource of attention and you're not getting it, it can be really easy to throw it out the window and be like, it's not working for me, so I'm going to stop. And there are so many people who have the skills, but they stop doing things because they don't get that attention that they're looking for. And that's not really part of the journey, or rather it's a smaller part of the journey than actually is involved in becoming a content creator in any sense. So don't quit before the miracle happens. Don't leave. If it's something that you're interested in, keep doing it, but you have to be prepared for people not to care. You have to be prepared to teach people who you are. And that's a huge part of this. Because the human brain, I don't remember where I read this, but the human brain needs to be exposed to something about 7 times for it actually to remember who you are and what you're doing. So you might think, oh, I've already posted this video, or should I really post 14 reels on my Instagram from this one podcast? People are probably sick of me. They're not. They're not. And if they are, they'll unfollow you. And that's kind of sad and disappointing. But hey, you have to just fearlessly shove your content out in the public space at least 7 times. And you can post 7 reels, but that doesn't mean that one singular person is going to see all 7 of those reels. So post 14 reels from your podcast episode, post 14 different pictures of this one art piece that you've created from different angles and lighting, because you need to teach people who you are if you're looking to create this resource of fame, or maybe this resource of money from that attention, and you want to keep growing on your journey if you want to make a difference in the world. That, of course, is my goal, and it might not be yours, but we're looking at this through the lens that I'm coming from, as always, on this podcast. So the first way, I really read 3 sentences from this article and riffed on it for a long time, but that's the point here. Okay, so bringing it back to this article from medium.com, we're going to talk about how to boost your confidence as a content creator. Here are ways that you can embrace your unique voice. Acknowledge your self-doubt and face it head on. As a content creator, you may experience self-doubt and uncertainty about your work. This is normal and it happens to everyone. However, acknowledging your self-doubt is the first step in overcoming it to boosting your confidence. Facing your self-doubt head on involves identifying the specific factors that are causing you to doubt yourself. Make a list of these factors and assess which ones are within your control to address. Exactly. You should only be focusing on the things that are within your control, and you should be not ignoring, but you shouldn't be focusing on the things that you don't have any control over. For example, consider taking a writing course or practicing writing regularly if you feel unsure about your writing skills. A lot of people look at different skills and think, I don't have any experience doing that, so what's the point in learning? Because all of these people out here are so skilled and they're so good at sharing their voice and their art, so why would I do it because I'm so far behind? Bestie, you're going to be alive either way. So you're going to be alive either participating in things that bring you closer to your goals, or you're going to be alive sad because you didn't do anything to get you towards those goals. The best time to start something is right now, and the second best time to start something is yesterday. So start it. Do it. Paint the picture, write the song, put it on SoundCloud, do whatever, send it to your friends, put it on YouTube, make a weird makeup look, do it. Art is art, and art, it's within the eyes of the beholder, and you, in the beginning, at least, are the only beholder. So you need to be able to develop those things that you're interested in growing in without that self-doubt, because self-doubt can really influence you in negative ways. Number 2 says, focus on your strengths as a content creator and build on them. So focusing on your strengths means identifying the areas in which you excel and using them for your advantage. And a part of this is your content creation is your life. And like I said before, it can lead you down a road of potential disappointment if you are attempting to monetize the thing that you really enjoy doing as an artist or anything like that. So if you're really into painting and that's something that you enjoy doing on your downtime and when you feel most creative, if you attempt to monetize that painting, then if it goes well and you get far in that journey, then now you're forced to be painting because that's how you're making your money, because we live in a capitalistic hellscape. But it can really start to make those things that were enjoyable to you in your downtime your full-time job, and you can fall out of love with something if you are forced, kind of, air quotes, forced to do it. So really be critical here about what you're willing to do and where you want to go with it. Because maybe you're building off of the skills that you already have. And that's kind of what I did. As a teacher, I had a lot of developed communication skills and developed ways about sharing information and talking, yapping. It all comes back to yapping. But I am building on the skills that I developed both as a drama student and also as an education student. Even here on my podcast, a lot of these things that I'm doing have built on the knowledge that I gained even from middle school. I do still hear my middle school drama teacher's voice in my head when I say the words and right and all of those filler words. I can still hear her words. I can still hear her words of encouragement in my brain as I'm working on these things like filming videos and recording podcasts and all of this. So you can make the choice to build off of what you already know, or hell, you want to start something brand new from the beginning? That's great. It's going to take a longer time, and you need to work on your mindset in order to push yourself through those roadblocks that confidence will help you hurdle. So doing this will make you feel more confident in your abilities and also attract more attention if that's something that you're looking for. Focusing on your strengths as a content creator can help you build a strong body of work, stand out from the crowd, and boost your confidence in your abilities. This is something that Queen Herbie talks about in her podcast. If you like podcasts and self-growth and this idea of becoming an artist, capital A, you should really go look at Queen Herbie's podcast. It's called The House of Herbie. The world needs your art. That's a quote from her. I love Queen Herbie so much. I love her music. You might not know who that is, but if you remember Carmen with a K, they were a music group, a duo from the early 2010s that was really making their splash in the music scene. They did a lot of covers on YouTube and I was obsessed with them when I was a teenager. And then Queen Herbie rebranded as Queen Herbie now and is this fully realized adult artist that has a podcast that regularly publishes music. She just released a new EP a couple of days ago. It's so good. I love it so much. So if you're into what I'm talking about and you want to keep following down this journey, Queen Herbie, House of Herbie podcast is something that might be interesting to you. But something that I learned from them right in the beginning of this, because I would be listening to podcasts while I was in the gym for the whole year leading up to me moving. And it was this great, really potent meditation time where I was able to internalize all of these mental things that I knew I needed in order to pursue these goals. And what she talked about was you need to create a catalog of content for people to binge on, because sometimes we think that, no, I'm not going to publish this because it's not a perfect, fully realized thing. And if something doesn't go viral on the first try, why would I keep going? But the key here is that you are creating a bank, a library of content for people to consume after one of those pieces eventually goes viral. Because really, it's a mathematical equation. If you're creating good content, people are going to want to look at it. And eventually, you will please the algorithm gods enough so something does get a lot of attention. But where are you driving that attention after you receive it? If I am publishing YouTube videos and one of them gets 1 million views, I need to have somewhere for the rest of that attention to go in order to capitalize it in the most effective way. So if I'm waiting to create one singular YouTube video that's going to get 1 million views, if that's the only video on my channel, people are going to be less likely to subscribe. But if that's episode 49 and there's a whole list of things that people can go through and binge, they're going to be more likely to subscribe to my channel and watch the rest of those videos. So don't think that you need to have one final version, a perfect thing that's going to get so much attention and go viral, and that's going to give you all of the things that you want out of your goals as a content creator. It doesn't work like that. You need to keep creating content. You need to build that library to have somewhere for people to land after you get some kind of push in views, because eventually it will happen. You just have to keep going. Number 3 talks about remember why you started creating content in the first place. So this is like what we talked about in the first half about really understanding your why. So remembering why you started creating content in the first place is a phrase that encourages creators to reflect on the original motivation that led them to start producing content. Because if your why is strong enough, it'll push you through those low views. If you're in 200 view jail on TikTok, which I've been before, sometimes still currently am, it can really make you take a hit on your confidence levels. And if you're not confident, it stands to reason that you're probably not going to be able to create good content if you're operating out of this state of not being confident in what you're doing. You need to know who you are and deliver it confidently at all times. It doesn't mean that you have to be confident in all times, but that kind of inner work and mindset needs to be done so you can look at your inner saboteur, but you don't invite her in for coffee. You know, she knocks on the door, you open the door, you go, "Hi, bestie," but you're not coming in, and then you close the door and move on with your life. For example, a creator may have started creating content because they want to share their expertise with others or build a community around a particular interest. As they create more content, they may become frustrated or discouraged by factors such as low engagement or negative comments. The reading mean comments video, I'm planning on filming that today. I've received a lot of online hate, in quotation marks, people arguing with me online, people being hateful to me online because I'm a queer person, I'm masculine with a beard, but my nails are painted, sometimes I have a full drag face on. You have to be able to deal with those negative comments in whatever works best for you. I've been in a lot of therapy. I've had almost a decade of therapy under my belt, and that's something that has definitely helped me along with that as well. But that does relate back to like the financial privilege that I've had, because therapy is expensive, and unfortunately not everybody has access to good affordable therapy. There are problems with apps like BetterHelp. Some people have had good experiences, but that's fine. But sometimes there's a lot of problematic things that happen. If you live in a bigger city like Calgary, the Calgary Counseling Center does offer good quality therapy on a sliding scale. So it's based off of your income, so it can be more affordable for you there. But unfortunately for some people, it is out of reach. And I think that's really sad. And I think that's really unfortunate. And that again is a reason why I want to create this resource of fame and money so I can start giving back, because I want therapy to be more accessible for everybody. But we're going to start with the queer community, because those are the folks that I have the most fire in my heart in order to support, because the world can be a hateful, discriminatory place for queer folks. And that really bothers me, and I'm interested in changing that. So that's my why. So remind yourself of why you started creating content in the first place. You can regain a sense of purpose and confidence in your work. Then you can refocus on your original goals, realign your content with your core values, and find renewed motivation to continue creating and sharing your work in the field. Number 4 says, take from constructive criticism and use it to improve. This is that growth mindset. Again, personal plug. Go listen to that growth mindset episode of mine on Detox. There's so much other content out there from the growth mindset perspective. Go out there, develop your growth mindset, let go of that ego, because that can really hold you back in your content creation journey. Because constructive criticism is a valuable tool for any content creator, because it offers feedback on your work that can be used to improve future content. Here's my idea on getting critical feedback. You don't need to do it forever, but I do think you need to try it, right? If you get feedback on your makeup and you think, I don't want to do that, that's okay, but do it. Give it a shot. Because even if you figure out a way that you don't want to do your makeup, that's still going to be valuable. And there are so many little nuggets of learning that you can pull out of doing something that you know you won't want to do. And hey, maybe you'll paint that face and go, wow, that does actually look really good. I need to keep doing that. Listen to the people around you. You don't have to do it forever, but in my opinion, if it's reasonable, you have to do it once, because you're going to learn. You're going to learn new things, practice and try new things. Don't do the same thing over and over expecting different results, or really the same results. I keep stealing my own talking points, but it continues to say that you should take criticism as a learning opportunity, consider the source, because if Betsy out here is talking about how to dance better and they're not a dancer, they might not be able to provide to you meaningful feedback. I remember when I was getting off stage once, this guy in the corner was like, you need to loosen up your hips more. I'm like, okay, thanks. Jesus, why would you say that to me? Was he wrong? No, I got tight hips. I do got tight hips. My hips do lie. In fact, it is something that I'm working on, but sometimes you need to consider the voice, and sometimes the delivery of somebody critiquing your work can come off as very harsh. But it is a skill to be able to look past the delivery and actually what somebody is sharing with you. So that man who barked at me saying, you need to loosen up your hips, I do kind of hear his voice, not in a negative way. It could be negative, but I don't think it is for me as I'm dancing and then in my stretches and then when I'm in the gym. And it's just, I'm working on my hip mobility because it's something that matters to me in the context of being a dancer. So sometimes these things that we think are really negative can actually help us in internalizing the goals that we have, even though the initial experience might be negative. And receiving criticism as a whole, a lot of us are pretty bad at receiving criticism because it can feel painful and personal. And that's fair, that's okay. But you really have the power to decide how much you are going to pay attention to that, let it affect you in negative ways. And you can harness some of those criticisms in really positive ways, in my experience, but it does take work. It continues by saying, look for patterns. If you receive criticism from multiple sources about the same thing, it could be a sign that an area needs improvement. Focusing on making changes in those areas can improve your content moving forward. And don't be afraid to ask questions to these people that are giving you criticism as well. If you don't understand it, if it's unclear or vague, ask for clarification, because understanding that feedback can be really important as well. The next sub point here in this one is celebrate your successes. Take the time to acknowledge the areas that you have improved on and the positive feedback that you receive. Our brains are really good at only remembering the bad things and throwing out the good things. Look at those analytics, celebrate what has happened and how you are going to take that motivation. You kind of have to harness those good moments and really internalize it and like build up those confident building blocks in your brain in order to keep them there when morale is low, because at some point morale is always going to be low. The next one, number 5, says surround yourself with positivity and support. So as a content creator, it's important to feel confident in your work. One effective way to boost your confidence is to surround yourself with positivity and support. So this can be joining online communities. This can be seeking mentors of people who do similar things that you do. And you can acknowledge your successes even if it's something really small. It doesn't matter how big it is, but if you can derive meaning from it, it's worth celebrating. And focus on creating meaningful and impactful content that resonates with your audience and building building your audience is something that is a big part of this conversation as well, because who are you creating this for? Sometimes it's hard to conceptualize what kind of person is going to like your content, but if you are out in this online world, you can start to analyze the kind of people that like your videos. Click on those profiles of people that follow you out of nowhere because the algorithm gods fed you your video, and look at what kind of person that is. What's their age? Where are they from? Usually the people that follow me out of nowhere on Instagram and TikTok with no mutuals, there's usually some kind of pride flag in the bio, and I'm like, okay, it's the queer folks. My biggest demographic is feminine queer folks from the age 24 to 35. That's just my biggest demographic, and I love that. If that's you, if you're fit here, thank God you're here, girl. I need you. But also, if you're anybody who falls outside of that, I'm also super glad that you're here. I appreciate you. But the queer folks is a big part of my demographic, and I have built that on purpose because thank God I'm such a queer person. So it would make sense that I'm bringing in that audience because that's the kind of content that I create. You know, that gay stuff. Number 6 is remembering that mistakes are a part of the process. This again is a big mindset moment, so go listen to that growth mindset podcast. It's important to remember that making mistakes is a normal part of the learning process. Instead of being discouraged by your mistakes, use them as opportunities to grow and improve your content. Okay, so number 8 is where we get into the organization of it all, and that's me. I love organization. You hear that? The sweet, sweet sound of organization. You got to stay organized. I love organization, and I spend a lot of time doing so. I am waiting on an OCD diagnosis, but the jury's still out on that. I'll update you here. As a content creator, it's important to stay organized and plan to boost your confidence and improve the quality of your work. And that's also too, if you set a plan, follow through, you're teaching your brain that you can actually do the things that you set out to do. It's okay if that goal becomes unreasonable and you're going to put yourself in harm's way, like staying up way too late many nights in a row in order to reach this goal that you didn't really have an understanding of how much work it would take you to get to that spot. You can modify things and change it, but ultimately if you make an agreement with yourself of something that you want to do, it is important just from a neuroscience perspective to follow through with those goals. So you are subconsciously teaching yourself that you can follow through with the things you tell yourself you're going to do, because that relationship that you have with yourself is probably the most important one, not only as a human being, but as a content creator. So you can create a content calendar, you can set goals, develop a routine, use templates and tools. And a lot of these things are very personal, and you have to develop your sense of organization of what works for you. There's so many different options. We're going to finish this podcast here where I'm going to walk you through the apps that I use, the tech that I use in order to bring my content to life for you, and my calendars. I have them all out and ready to go, but that's going to be the last section here if that's something that you're interested in, because that's very specific to me and it might not work for you. But if you're starting from the beginning of your content creation journey, especially as it relates to your online presence and building a presence out in the world, it can be useful maybe as a jumping off point for you. But that's what we're going to finish with here in the last section. Number 9 says, take time for self-care and relaxation. Take care of yourself, babes. Do it. Get good sleep. Research sleep hygiene, like your sleep. Oh, this is my soapbox moment. Sleep is so important. Sleep influences pretty much everything else that you do in your life. So make sure that you're getting good sleeps. Relaxation is another part. Take care of yourself. Take care of your mental health. Go to therapy. Increase your self-awareness. All of these things that you are probably already engaging in because you're listening to my podcast about how to create content. If you've listened to any of my other ones, like my self-helpy ones, you're probably already engaging in some of this content, and that's a really important step. But don't take everything somebody says as fact and follow it down to the T. Not everything I'm sharing here is going to work for you, and that's okay, and that's kind of the point. But use it as a jumping off point for you to think about how you want to set up your life around content creation. Okay, so number 10 says seek feedback from trusted sources. So go out there and find people that you enjoy creating content that they have created, right? That can be really meaningful. You can find people out in the world that you look at and go, that's pretty close to what I want. So go out there if it's feasible, ask them for help, ask them for advice. And even if it's a big content creator, I've emailed YouTubers that have 100,000 subscribers and I go, hey, my name's David. I'm just starting out on my YouTube channel. I really love what you do. Would you be willing to give me any advice? If you have the time, would you look at my content? Could you just give me any information that you think would be helpful? Most times people would respond. If somebody sent me that email, I would probably put in a decent amount of time and effort helping that person because it is quite flattering. So not everybody would respond to you in a nice, constructive way, but you would be surprised at the amount of people that would help you if you just ask. But you don't know if you don't ask. Yeah, it continues to talk about learning and expanding your skills, try new things, experiment. Learning new things keeps you up to date because things, especially in the online space, are rapidly evolving. So read those articles, do all those things. These new skills can help you generate new ideas. Expanding your skills can increase the reach that you have on social media if that's what you're looking for. And building these skills can help you find new categories of a niche that you're interested in going after, right? A really big part of my confidence, sharing my skills and talking and into a microphone or to a camera have come from my Does Size Matter videos, because talking into a camera and holding people's attention is something that is not natural for most of us. So building those skills can help you kind of branch out into other ways that you're interested in creating and sharing content. And finally, the last one here is trust your unique voice and don't compare yourself to others. As a content creator, it is tempting to compare yourself to others who are doing similar work. However, this can lead to feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt, which can ultimately hinder your ability to create the best content you are capable of. Instead of comparing yourself to others, it's important to only compare yourself to yourself and trust your unique voice. So your unique voice refers to your distinct personality, perspective, and style, and it's what sets you apart from others and makes your content stand out. Trusting your unique voice means embracing your individuality and using it to create content that is authentic to who you are. Don't create things that you think other people will like if it's not what you will like as well. It has to come from you, and it has to come from a real place, because people can recognize it. Even if they can't identify it, they know. They can feel that something's off, even if they can't put their finger on why. Because if you can create content that is true to your unique values and interests, you will ultimately attract an audience that resonates with you as well. Trusting your unique voice as an online content creator means embracing your individuality and creating content that is true to who you are. And by doing so, this will boost your confidence, attract a loyal audience, and ultimately create the best content possible. So many good nuggets in there. Okay, besties, we're going to take one more break here. I'm going to go sit on the air conditioner for a few minutes, and then I'm going to come back and I'm just going to walk you through me personally, what I do, what a day in my life looks like. Ooh, that sounds crazy to say. How I schedule things, how I create, how I edit, how I plan, how I organize, all of those things. So it's going to be very specific and personal to me. So if you're interested in that, stick around for the last few minutes of this pod, and I will be right back. Okay, babies, thanks for sticking around with me and coming back for this last section of this podcast about content creation. Now I'm just going to quickly walk you through a day in my life. Oh, this is so personal. I feel a little bit nervous to share this, but this is what I do as a content creator. This is how I schedule things and kind of just how my life works as a content creator. Again, I do have a lot of privilege to be able to do this. I spend all of my time, 100% of my day is usually related to content creation things. So what I'm showing you here has been the result of 1 full year of me fully participating in this content creation journey. So it might look overwhelming to you and exceedingly detailed, but I need to instill the confidence into you right now that you can do something like this, similar to this, if you practice and do trial and error, because ultimately I have pages and pages and documents and lists and all of these things from all of this time that has led me to this position. So don't think you're going to start like this, but ultimately you can start with potentially one of these pieces. And also, I'm a Virgo Libra cusp, so I am very detailed. I love making lists and being organized. So maybe this wouldn't work for you in respect to it might look like too much work. Although putting in the work in the beginning in order to benefit your future self is something that I think is really important, but we're going to get into it here. So how does my day look? So when I go to bed, I set my timer for 8 hours of sleep. So it doesn't really matter unless I have a time constraint like a show the next morning or something very specifically that I need to do the next day. I set a timer for 8 hours of sleep because sleep is important to me. I want that full 8 hours. So I set a timer for 8 hours and I wake up whenever that timer is done, and then I start my day. So the timing of things isn't really super specific for me, but the order in which I kind of go about my day is usually pretty specific. Now, I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do, I know, is go on social media, but that's when I go first thing in the morning is do that social media stuff. So what does that look like? I go into Instagram and I have 2 different Instagram pages. One of them is david.day and one of them is dtalk with David Day. So I have a podcast page and I have not a regular one, and it's not really a personal one either, but so I have the 2 because after a while I realized I wanted to separate those kinds of things. So I have 2 Instagrams. I also have 2 TikToks. They're the same. One of them is David Day. One of them is dtalk with David Day. And then I have all of my things on YouTube, and then I have all of my things on Spotify. So I start in the morning and I go through all of the comments that I've received in the last 24 hours. I respond to them. I like them. I delete them if they're hateful and being discriminatory on purpose. So I start there with the comments. I go through and I look at my analytics and see how things have performed over the last 24 hours. And then I release my new content for the day. Now, if you're listening on Spotify, you won't be able to see the visuals of this, but I'm going to explain it as best I can. And if you're on YouTube, I'm going to show you here just on my phone what this looks like on a regular basis. So if I go into my Instagram, we're going to look at the scheduled posts because this is just wild. So looking at my scheduled posts here, I post usually one thing a day. So these are all of my scheduled posts for the next week or two, maybe even 3. So these things go out at specific times. And then when I'm up in the morning, these things probably would have already been posted. So I'll either go and share them to my stories or send them to friends that I think would like them and just kind of do that sharing moment. Then I go to my podcast page and do the exact same thing. So everything is scheduled. So these right here are all of my podcast reels. I post 1 or 2 of them a day, and they're all scheduled to go out at 9 a.m. And then I go and I quickly share the new reel onto my stories with a link either to Spotify or YouTube. And I kind of alternate there which one I link. And then I put things in highlights and organize them in that way. Then I go into TikTok and do the exact same thing. And then I go into YouTube, check the comments and see how things are performing in there. And all of my YouTube content as well is scheduled. This is cool because nobody really has access to this except me. These are all of the videos that are coming for me. And because I have a really busy summer, so I have a summer semester at the U of L for 2.5 weeks. And I also, this is exciting. This is a little Easter egg for you. If you're here at the end listening to all the things that I'm doing, I'm going to tell you. You might have noticed that I've been doing Does Size Matter Part 2, the remix, on my Instagram for the last calendar year. Oh, it's been a long time. You know the videos where I'm standing in front of the world's largest skunk and telling really bad jokes? Well, babies, Part 3 is coming. Part 3 is coming. So I am taking a 2-week trip, a road trip through Canada a little bit, but mostly the United States. So I'm going in with Amber. We're going in starting in BC, working our way down the coast all the way through like San Francisco and Oregon and Seattle. Kind of said that all backwards and conjugated weirdly, but you get the drill. Going down, ending in LA, coming back up through Las Vegas. We're going to do Area 51, the Grand Canyon, Salt Lake City, all the things. And there are 160 something filming locations that we're going to be doing. So it's going to be 2 weeks of essentially content farming. So there's lots of moving pieces with that. There's going to be a drone, there's going to be harnesses, there's going to be microphones and lighting and this and that. It's so very detailed and specific. Even that document of planning is like 16 pages long because we had to figure out how long it was going to take us to drive from this thing to this thing and how much filming time are we going to need. I'm going to need scripts. I need all of the tech in order to make this happen. I ordered some custom kind of merch. So like hats and tote bags and all of those things. And as I'm explaining this to you right now, it sounds so complicated, and it is, but I'm here to tell you that I built all of this over the last year. So it is something that is doable, but don't look at what you have and compare it to me because it's not helpful to do that. But if you are interested in content creation in any way, shape, or form that is similar to what I do, if this is interesting to you, it might be worthwhile seeing what this looks like from the back end of the creator side. And of course, a lot of my Instagram and TikTok content is repurposed from the videos that I am posting on YouTube. So all of my new dismantling hate videos each get one reel on its own and they post on the corresponding days so I can shamelessly promote myself to send people to my YouTube channel to watch those videos. Ultimately, I decided YouTube as being my most important platform because that is the platform for me I have been able to see the highest monetization. It's a little bit harder and more complicated depending on what you're doing, but for me it would be more laborious in order to monetize TikTok and Instagram to the same extent that I will be able to monetize YouTube. It'll just give me the highest return for my efforts. So that's why a lot of my things are driving people to YouTube. So here are the calendars. Here's my July. So my Instagram and TikTok content is all labeled in that yellow. And then the red is the dismantling hate. And then the green is the podcast episodes. So my schedule here is that on Sundays, I don't post any new content most of the time. That's kind of the catch-all day. If I make anything last minute and I want to shove it out there, Sunday is the day that I do that. Monday is, this is so complicated. This is crazy. I don't know if this is going to make sense to you, but I'll try and explain it. So Mondays are the day that I post a picture of the world's largest thing that I'm going to post a video for on Tuesday. So that's me creating a little bit of a stir online. So I'll post a picture of me in front of the world's largest Paul Bunyan and say, tomorrow on Does Size Matter? And then the new Does Size Matter videos go out on Tuesdays on my Instagram and TikTok. Also on Mondays, I drop a new dismantling hate video. So those have been scheduled into YouTube for a while now. So a new dismantling hate video comes out on Mondays, and then a corresponding reel for that video comes out on Instagram and TikTok. On Tuesdays, the new Does Size Matter video drops, and then on Wednesdays, I have a new podcast episode that drops. And then I promote my podcast on Instagram and TikTok on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Then on Friday, a new dismantling hate video comes out, and then the promos on Instagram and TikTok go out at the same time. And then on Saturdays, this is a flex YouTube day, so I've been working recently on editing my performance videos and putting them out there. But it's it's either a performance video, a makeup tutorial, or maybe a dismantling hate. It's just something. It's that kind of creative area where I think I want to post something, but I'm not nailing myself down to what I want to post. So I'm just going to create something to throw out on YouTube every Saturday. And then, of course, the promo for whatever video that ends up being goes out on Instagram and TikTok on those same days. Then if we look into August, August is very heavy. You can see the yellow are the Does Size Matter things. So because I'm going on this Does Size Matter Part 3, the remix, I needed to have all of this stuff together. And for my time as a student as well, I'm going to be heavily researching neuroscience and all kinds of things in that 2.5-week span. So I'm not going to have time to do any of this, to do any content creation. Everything has to be scheduled and ready to go. I've allotted myself 30 minutes every morning when I wake up to go and promote some of those things onto my stories. But other than that, I'm not going to have any other content time. So I've been working very hard these last few weeks in order to get the rest of my summer up to the end of August scheduled and ready to go, because I'm going to be very busy. That is to say, if you're listening to this right now, I recorded this podcast on June 23rd, and you're probably listening. Oh, hell no, the schedule's right here. Let me tell you, you're going to be listening. This podcast is going to go out on July 17th. So I'm working in advance here because I got to be organized. So yeah, lots of Does Size Matter things are going to be going out in August because I want to get through all of my backlog of Does Size Matter videos and promos. So it's all going to be done on August 31st. So this is my content calendar, and that is a little bit different from my calendars of what I'm going to be doing on day to day, like the tasks that I need to do. So I do have two different sets of calendars. This is my one of like my to-do list for each day. So today, of course, on Sunday, June 23rd, it says Film Detox Season 2, Episode 11. That's, of course, what I'm doing right now. So after this, I'm going to take the video that I filmed. I'm going to put it onto my iPad. I'm going to export the audio from my iPad that is currently recording, match those together, take down the audio from the camera, edit the audio that is coming from the microphone right now, put them together, export them as one, edit it all out. And Canva is a really big program that I use a lot here as well. So all of my end caps and a lot of like marketing materials, I guess I would say, it's not actually the video, the clips of the podcast, it's the little thing that rolls at the end, I use in Canva. I also design some of my own music, and that happens in the Captions app where I use the AI music creator so I don't get copyright striked. And I also play around in GarageBand. I think the Does Size Matter audio came from the Captions app, but then my Detox audio came from GarageBand. It's all very specific, and all of this has been through trial and error. So yeah, I edit most things. I have the iPad Pro. I do it on there. So after I edit one episode of a podcast, I export it, upload it to YouTube and Spotify. I create custom thumbnails on Canva and put them on there as well, so everything looks customized. And then I take that video and I chop it up into smaller sections, put it in portrait, and then I go in and schedule them on Instagram and TikTok to come out at a later day. And then I'm just kind of building on what I have, because now on my Instagram and TikTok, I have things scheduled and ready to go up to the end of August. So it's a lot of work, and I didn't really realize, look at me following my own advice, because I am going to celebrate this win for myself and acknowledge the work that I put in here, because it is an incredible amount of work. And this, of course, is so specific to me. So don't think that your content creation journey needs to look like this in any way. I haven't explained myself and what I do in great detail here, I understand as well. But just briefly, I wanted to be able to bring you into how much work this actually takes, and how much organization it takes, and how much planning it takes, because it's not a small endeavor. And of course, I am out here putting my whole self online and creating this online presence. So this might not be something that you're interested in doing, and that's okay, but that's what this looks like for me. So I just wanted to share. Yeah, so this is the face of a person that currently has 100 scheduled things in Instagram and TikTok, because that's just what it is. It's how I keep myself organized and do that. So thank you so much for getting to the end of episode 11 here on season 2 of Detox on my YouTube channel and on Spotify. I appreciate you so much for being here. Consider subscribing to the channel and liking and commenting if you're on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, you can ask me a question, you can leave a rating. All of that stuff really helps to support my content, and I appreciate you so much for doing that. Please consider going after your content creation journey if you deep down feel like you need to be seen, because you probably are, and the world needs your art. I'm here to support you. If you have any questions or need any help, you can DM me on Instagram and TikTok. I'd be willing to help you as much as I can in those moments. I'm here for you, babes. You can do whatever you set your mind to, and you can start today. That's the thing. Start messing around. Play with that makeup. Start styling a wig. Start dancing around. Have fun. That's really the lens that I want you to see all of this through. You need to have fun. and you need to enjoy it, because if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to be willing to do it for any long amount of time. All of this detailed work and the scheduling and the planning and the calendars and all of that, I love that kind of stuff. I love it. I love editing things. I love being funny with my editing, not so much with the detox episodes, but with the YouTube content. I love like putting in little cutaways of like Family Guy and Jamie Lee Curtis saying intergenerational trauma. Like all of those things just bring me so much joy because I enjoy being creative. So personally, this is what I do. But again, don't take this as this is what your content creation journey needs to look like. I just wanted to share with you my examples. So thanks again for getting to the end of this. I love you, babes. You look great today. And until next week, goodbye.